Hello, friends, and happy December 1st. One more month, and we're entering a new year, which should be a very interesting year, as far as I have heard. But in the meantime, here we are. And I want to engage us all a little more about what is called the core wound. When I started the training as a Hakomi therapist or Hakomi practitioner, when was that? In 2000, I think. That was the first time I heard that term, but we work a lot with core beliefs and core wounds, core traumas. And of course, with Hakomi, a lot of the work is really helping people be present with what's going on in their inner experience and learning how to be present with something that we normally want to get rid of, turn away from. So that's been it's been a big gift for me to have access to that experience and that wisdom that came through my Hakomi training, which is what I offer my clients now. And the core wound, like, what is a core wound? Because when I took the training, it was not like, what is this thing? It's just like there's something in us that always goes back there somehow, consciously or unconsciously, and it colors our life experience. So, what is a core wound? And then my other question is, do we all have one? I don't know if we all have one, this is mine. But I think most of us, if not all, are very identified with this thing called a core wound. So I want to just share a little bit about what it seems to be in my experience after, all my own inner journey. And it's something I've been aware of in myself and work with for many, many years, and also with my clients, of course. And it's something I talk about how to meet those parts in ourselves. And at the core of it, and this I want to stitch this back to the teachings of Joel Goldsmith, where he says, the core belief that he doesn't use the word core belief, but at the core of us, the real problem is that we have this belief that we are separate, that we have a separate sense of self, a separate experience from God. And this experience is very felt. It's a felt sense in the body. And it hurts. We want to get away from it. We want to get rid of it. We want to suppress it. We want to ignore it. We want to fix it. We want to have other people fixing it. And in my own experience, that separate sense of self does not go away, even though we may do some deep work around it, until we fully embody who we truly are as the divine. There will be a gap between who we are and who we still believe we are, or have a felt sense of who we are. So this gap, that's a wound, that hurts. And as long as this gap is there, trust me, we're not going to feel peace. We're not going to feel at home. We're not going to feel complete. No matter how successful we are in life, no matter how much maybe great therapy we do. And I'm all for good therapy, trust me, otherwise I wouldn't be in this role here that I'm playing. But a lot of great work is done. And what it does, it kind of helps build up that separate sense of self, which in the beginning, it just feels like this collapsed, victimized presence that we are, that we're just dependent on everything outside of us, and we compromise a lot of things in our life, in love, we compromise, we're not being true to ourselves. In our work, we may just have a job and just do it for the money. There's many ways we compromise in that earlier stage because we don't really know what else to do. We are dependent on others because we feel we are separate and we don't really have the power or the choice to do any other things. And then what I've seen, then we moved through that and we come to a place where we feel like, you know, this doesn't feel right. I don't want to, let myself be abused like that. I want to, there's something inside that goes like, darn it, enough. And that is when we start moving into a place where we realize that we have choice. And that's a lot of the work that I see with my clients, that they come to this place, and I work a lot with the feeling of longing. And that's often ignored, especially in the early stages, because we don't even think that's possible. Looking back at our lives, like, well, that didn't work, so why would I even do that? So I suppress it. But then when we start getting engaged with that, and that's why I have my monthly gathering online called Feel Your Deepest Longing, Find Your Divine Calling. And you're welcome to join me in that. I'll put the link in the description. So when we get to that, well, we start realizing we actually have a choice. We start getting in touch with, our authenticity, our sovereignty. We call it co-creation. It's the law of attraction. We realize that we have a lot to do with how we experience our lives. And then we start, creating what we want. We leave our job, we leave our relationship, and now I'm not going to be this victim anymore. Very empowering, very beautiful. Life changes, a lot of things improve, and there is a sense of contentment and a sense of accomplishment. Feels a lot better than being a victim, right? We can all relate to this. It seems like just a natural part of evolution. We still need to work through that victim identity, and there's a lot of layers that we need to meet, and that's how it is, on the whole journey. But so then we become good manifestors, and we become maybe manifesting coaches, and some become really popular. Others, they're still like they're doing the work, and they're still not really accomplished like they want to. They're still struggling with money. There's all these things that are happening. It's not just like, okay, I'm a manifester and tomorrow, your mail is full of checks or something like that. Although they may be, depends on, what channel of manifesting is open in that stage where we really come into our sovereignty. Very empowering, feels really good, and I wouldn't want anybody to miss out on that, because it is a big shift from that victimhood to sovereignty. And then, of course, the core wound is still there for most of us. It's just, it hasn't really been active because we've been so engaged in creating the life we want. And then it looks like we're successful on the outside, and many, I mean, I've heard it about and from so many people who are very successful. When they're really honest, they don't feel good inside. They don't feel happy. They don't feel really fulfilled, even though their outer life may look like it's super fulfilled. There's something still missing. And what's missing, of course, is that there's still this gap of who they truly are and who they think they are. And now instead of thinking they're this, this victim, what it used to be, now they're thinking they're this separate sense of self that can create anything, that's empowered, that's not going to be a doormat anymore. So it's a whole new it's a whole new identity. But there's still this gap. And this gap is what I would call the core wound, and that at some point we need to address it. We can't keep bypassing it, which is a very normal phase in that manifesting um, journey. It's just there. It's like we're not even aware if it's there. But suddenly it starts it starts getting our attention. And then we don't really know what to do. So we think, oh, I need to manifest more. I need more clients, more money, more this, more that. No, that's just covering up this part here. So do we all have one? You would have to check that with yourself and feel, do you really feel fulfilled in your heart? Is there just a natural joy? Or are there still layers where, it's like, no, I'm not, but, it's okay. There's kind of a compromising. So at some point, my friends, we probably need to meet this and close this gap to feel fulfilled, to not be dependent on something on the outside, and start realizing that who we are is fulfillment itself. There is no true fulfillment outside of ourselves. The fulfillment that really fills us full from the inside out. And from that inner feeling of fulfillment, these things that we need and want and enjoy, they must manifest. But again, that doesn't happen overnight, because we need to really close that gap so that the fulfillment is not being stopped here. It's like the fulfillment is coming out, and then it's like, oh, I have to do it myself. So we don't allow it out. That seems to be another layer that we really need to meet. So the core wound is where we feel we are separate from the divine. We have a separate sense of self, and this separate sense of self needs to make us survive. It needs to provide for us. But this provide for us, this me is still a separate sense of God, separated from the divine source where everything comes from. when, excuse me, when we live here, and this is very challenging. This is what has been my path for a long time. And it's like really learning to realize who we really are. And then not just who we really are, but what we are, what this I is, this thing we call I, or I am. I have a number of videos on that, little meditations to just invite you in. And then once the separate sense of self is just left behind, which is the doer, your name, your gender, your job, your thoughts, when we leave that behind for a moment and then get curious, what is left? Because there's still something here. I think I did a little meditation on that the other day. I'll put the link up here. Once we start realizing that I am that, I am divine. It's not like I actually am the I am of God that I think is somewhere up there. And you get a real feeling of like, oh, I am that. And once you start getting that experience, then we really need to come back to that over and over and allowing that gap to be filled. Now, this pain of feeling separate, that's the core wound. We can't keep bypassing it, even just by going to I am. When we are centered here, we can open up to that seeming gap, that pain. The deep core pain and wounding. And it has beliefs in there, not good enough, unlovable, unwanted, whatever. That needs to be met. It doesn't need to be fixed. That might be part of the journey to get to the place where you go like, I don't want to keep fixing this separate sense of self. I want to bring it into the wholeness. I want to integrate it into who I truly am when I don't keep pushing this away from myself. So I want to encourage you to maybe go back to some of the previous videos on that and learn, how do you meet these wounds? How do you be present with them? And there's not much to do. There's no doing involved. The doing was kind of all the doing we did to get to this place. But now it's learning to be that, who we are, where we're not separate. And when we're not separate, there's no fear in meeting the part that feels separate. We just allow it. We just hold it energetically or in stillness. And this knows exactly how to dissolve it or integrate it or bring it into the oneness of who we are. So the core wound, at some point, it really has to be met from a deep place of love. That's why self-love to me is still, it's a very juicy gift that we all have, to really love the parts that feel separate. And by loving them, filling them with love, it just brings us back into the love that we already are. It's like that puzzle piece that's waiting outside of us to be brought in here. And then the puzzle is complete. It's never going to complete as long as there's one piece out there that we will not let in. So any part of ourselves that we keep out there because we think we're separate, it all has to come back home. Yeah. Of course, if you would need some support in that, I encourage you to reach out to me. Put it in the description below, the link. And if you want to connect with the monthly group I have online, the link will also be below. I think it's really helpful to explore these things with others who are in the same boat, because then we realize that there's actually something bigger going on right now. And we're all being asked to come back home to ourselves and leave the separation. I'm going to say behind, but then it feels like it's separate again. Leave the belief or the fear of the separate part behind and start bringing it home. Or really listening deeply to what you deeply long for. That is your home. That is your divinity. That is your God. That is your I am. And it's calling us home through this deep, sweet longing that lives in all of us. So that's my invitation for all of us today. And please reach out if you have any questions or need support in that. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.